The Pokemon World Championships just wrapped up. Congratulations to Andre winning with an awesome Arceus Flying Pikachu Hisuian Decidueye deck. Maybe not the best deck that was in the tournament, but it was the best deck for the tournament because it countered Palkia really hard, countered Arceus pretty hard, and those were it was the deck that beat the best decks, which is amazing. But like, let's go scale this back a little bit, right? You might be just starting out the game and you're playing with the pre-made decks that the game gives you, and all of a sudden you go on the ladder and you're just getting destroyed by decks that have just ultra rare card after ultra rare card after ultra rare card. And it feels like, and I've been there, when I started playing the game, everyone was playing ADPZ, Arceus, Dialga, Palkia, and then Zacian. And I was getting wrecked. And I thought at that time, like, oh, this game is impossible. I don't have good cards, therefore I cannot win. And I think I've come to learn that yes, there are definitely advantages that certain cards have over other cards. But if you're not trying to win the World Championships, you're just trying to have a good time, get some wins so that you can unlock the in-game rewards and feel like you have a chance in battle, I don't think you need to worry too much about having like an Arceus deck, a Palkia deck, and so on. Right now today, we have been streaming with a Flying Pikachu deck. I know Flying Pikachu is in the World Championship deck, the top two decks. But we're not playing it with Arceus. We're playing a deck that has Flaffies, it's got Raichus, it's got Raikos, and we're doing okay. And I can even show with my record here with this deck, and I've been practicing with this and making tweaks and adjustments to try and make it the best version of this deck that it can be. We're just over 50%, 55 wins and 109 games. And like, that's for a lot of decks, getting it to where you can win at about 50%, that's fine. And I think that I wanted to show some other examples of sort of budget decks that don't necessarily have top tier cards that have done well. This is from the World Championships. This is Arceus, right? So yeah, say what you will. Arceus is an amazing card, but it's Arceus Aggron. Arceus Aggron VMAX got 13th at the World Championships. No one plays this deck. No one plays this deck. And I don't know this player's particular motivations for running Aggron specifically. Like, maybe they're trying to farm Ice Rider or something, but this would not be considered a top tier deck, and it got 13th at Worlds. Not saying that you can just put together any sort of deck and win, but you don't necessarily have to play the top tier decks to do well, right? Here is a Radiant Charizard deck. It's only got one Zapdos V, and all of these look like regular cards otherwise. This is an incredibly strong deck. Here's Hazy Cats, and you probably recognize this deck list because this is the deck list I borrowed for the Shadow Rider and Mewtwo list. She only plays this deck, and you can watch her play this deck pretty much on stream all the time. She loves this deck, the only deck she plays, and she's been constantly trying to refine it, and she won. She won the late night special season 5, going 8-1 in that tournament with Shadow Rider Mewtwo beating some top players. Like Gabriel Smart was in the top 30 of the World Championships this year. I think Calvin Connor was also in the top as well, like beating top players with a deck that nobody was even thinking about. Here's a Frostmoth box deck. I've played against this a couple times, and it, in terms of ultra rare cards, it's just one Starmie and one Crabominable, and these are two very situational cards. They're not core to the deck, but this deck is also very strong. And I think that for the purposes of Like, if you're trying to compete for the world championships, like, yes, it's generally better to have really good cards. For the purposes of you're just starting out and you're just trying to build a deck, I think it's less important to have those ultra rare cards. And part of that is going to be your ELO. Like, the game, I know that Pokemon TCG is 1 billion years old, but there is a matchmaking system in there, and I went back through one of my old videos. This is one where I only had the reason I built this deck was I only had Crobats and Slowking, and this is not a good deck at all that I'm playing with. But look at my opponent's deck. Like, if you're not familiar with the game, you can look at this and say, oh my goodness, they've got all of these ultra rare cards. But knowing what I know now, Raichu GX and Zacian and Pikachu V and Luke Metal and Ditto have no chemistry whatsoever. This is just, here is a mishmash of ultra rare cards because I feel like I need ultra rare cards to win, but it's not a particularly well-functioning deck. And you will run into a lot of decks like this on the ladder as you are climbing up the ladder. And you can beat decks like this with budget cards. That Frostmoth deck is going to do it. Radiant Charizard's going to do it. The Hazy Cats deck is going to do it. The Solrock Lunatone would destroy this deck because they just have no consistency. They don't have the right trainer cards. None of these Pokemon have any real synergy with one another, and you can just take advantage of that. So I think that, moral of the story, it's nice to have nice cards, but it's way more important to just have a functioning deck. And I would say look at, watch different videos, look at different deck lists on Limitless and see what other people are playing. If you're looking for like other sort of budget and rogue options, I think the Little Dark Fury is amazing for that, where he explores a whole bunch of different cards and finds value in budget cards. Like, here's a deck with Melmetal, here's a deck with Starmie, Dubwool, and like, again, you don't necessarily need the top tier deck if your goal is just to win through the ladder every day. It's just about building a solid deck with a clear game plan. Who are your attackers? How am I drawing cards? Do I have the ability to target the right Pokemon when I need to? Is it whatever your win condition is, does your deck have a solid game plan to get you there? So that's all I wanted to say on the front. Don't feel discouraged because you don't have all the ultra rare cards. Focus on building one budget deck, like at least to start, one deck that is solid, and you should be all right.